American history occurred in Las Vegas in 2017, where 58 people were killed and over 500 were injured. Mass shootings have become a pervasive and tragic part of American life, leaving communities devastated and traumatized. The impact of these shootings is far-reaching, affecting not only the victims and their families, but also the wider community and the nation as a whole. The reasons behind the rise of mass shootings in America are complex and multifaceted. Some argue that the availability of guns is a key factor, with America having the highest rate of gun ownership in the world. Others point to issues such as mental health, domestic violence, and terrorism as contributing factors. The political polarization of the issue has also made it difficult to find solutions. Those who advocate for stricter gun control laws argue that limiting access to guns would help prevent these tragedies. Those who oppose gun control argue that the right to bear arms is a fundamental right protected by the Constitution and that limiting access to guns would only disarm law-abiding citizens, leaving them vulnerable to criminals. In addition to the political divide, there is also a significant racial disparity in the victims of mass shootings. According to the Gun Violence Archive, Black Americans are disproportionately affected by gun violence, accounting for over half of all gun homicide victims in the United States. This disparity has been attributed to factors such as systemic racism, poverty, and lack of access to resources and opportunities. Despite the overwhelming evidence of the harm caused by mass shootings, the issue remains highly politicized, with no consensus on how to address the problem. Some have advocated for a comprehensive approach that includes gun control measures, mental health services, and community outreach programs. Others argue that arming more people is the solution, suggesting that having more people with guns would help prevent mass shootings. Regardless of the approach, it is clear that mass shootings are a strange and disturbing fact of life in America. The frequency and severity of these incidents have left many Americans feeling scared, traumatized, and hopeless. The impact of these shootings is far-reaching, affecting not only the victims and their families, but also the wider community and the nation as a whole. It is essential to find a way to address this issue in a comprehensive and meaningful way. It is not enough to offer thoughts and prayers after each new incident. We must work to find a solution that will prevent these tragedies from happening in the first place. We owe it to the victims of mass shootings, their families, and the future generations of Americans to find a way to end this cycle of violence and ensure that our communities are safe and secure. The number of mass shootings in the United States has been steadily increasing in recent years. In the 1990s, there were an average of 6.4 mass shootings per year. In the 2010s, that number had risen to 16.4 per year. The United States has the highest rate of gun ownership in the world, with an estimated 120.5 guns per 100 residents. This high rate of gun ownership has been cited as a significant factor in the rise of mass shootings. Mental illness has been frequently cited as a contributing factor to mass shootings, although research has shown that the vast majority of people with mental illnesses are not violent. In fact, studies have shown that people with mental illnesses are more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Domestic violence has also been cited as a contributing factor to mass shootings. Research has shown that in many cases, mass shooters have a history of domestic violence or other forms of violence against women. The racial disparities in the victims of mass shootings are significant. Black Americans are disproportionately affected by gun violence, accounting for over half of all gun homicide victims in the United States. The issue of gun control is highly politicized in the United States, with advocates on both sides of the issue. Those who support gun control argue that limiting access to guns would help prevent mass shootings. Those who oppose gun control argue that the right to bear arms is a fundamental right protected by the Constitution and that limiting access to guns would only disarm law-abiding citizens, leaving them vulnerable to criminals. The impact of mass shootings goes beyond the immediate victims and their families. The fear and trauma caused by these incidents can have lasting effects on communities and society as a whole. Research has shown that exposure to gun violence can lead to a range of mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. In addition to the harm caused by the shootings themselves, the aftermath of these incidents can be costly. The cost of medical care for victims, the cost of law enforcement response, and the cost of legal proceedings can all add up to significant expenses for communities and the nation as a whole. In conclusion, the rise of mass shootings in America is a complex issue with no easy solutions. While there is no single cause of these incidents, factors such as gun ownership, mental illness, domestic violence, and racial disparities are all contributing factors. It is essential to find a way to address this issue in a comprehensive and meaningful way, to prevent these tragedies from happening in the first place, and to provide support and resources to those affected by gun violence.